The mirror of childhood. Imagine a child sitting in the corner of a room, silently, observing everything with eyes that seemed to understand more than they should. She didn't say much, but she noticed when adults lied, when someone was sad, even with a smile on their face. It was as if he felt what no one was saying. Do you remember it being like that? Now here's the fun fact. Research in child psychology shows that around 15 to 20% of children in the world are born with above-average emotional sensitivity, what many call old children or old souls. But what if this wasn't just sensitivity? What if this was a sign of something much bigger? What if what you thought was just difference as a child was actually a secret spiritual language that only you understood? The truth is, it wasn't imagination. It was coding. A silent call that the world tried to drown out, but could never erase. Be part of our spiritual family. Subscribe to the channel today and comment, "I believe" below, as a symbol that you accept your role in this great transition. Let your energy be counted among the chosen. The time is now. When the difference becomes a sign, have you ever felt different since you were a child? Not just strange, but as if something in you was disconnected from the world. As if you were always listening to a frequency that no one else was listening to. This was no coincidence. That was marking. From an early age, you carried signs that could not be explained in simple words. Dreams that were too vivid, premonitions that were later confirmed, a painful sensitivity to what others didn't notice. While everyone was rushing to be part of it, you always seemed to be behind the scenes of life, seeing behind the scenes from behind the scenes. According to transpersonal psychology, these manifestations are typical of individuals with expanded perception of consciousness, something that has only recently begun to be seriously investigated. But in his life, it was already there, before any research, statistics, or explanation. The world tried to erase the code. When a child shines too bright, the world tries to adjust them. Phrases like, "You think too much," "Stop being sensitive," "It's all in your head." These words have become invisible walls around you. But what few understand is that these phrases were not critical. They were unconscious attempts to turn off a light that was very uncomfortable. His curious mind and perceptive heart were mirrors, and mirrors scare those who don't want to see their own image. You have been conditioned to doubt your own intuition, suspicious of sensations that had no logical explanation. But what if in fact this was all part of a bigger plan? What if every time you felt like you didn't belong, the universe was saying, "You are different because you were chosen"? The call that never stopped. Even with time, even with silence, the call never disappeared. He hid in songs that gave you goosebumps, in words spoken by strangers that seemed to have been written for you. It appeared when you saw something unfair and rebelled, even if no one else noticed. And most of all, he came back in his dreams. Dreams. This is a separate chapter. According to studies from Stanford University, more than 60% of people who have spiritual awakening experiences report recurring dreams that intensify before major internal changes. You had those dreams too, didn't you? They weren't just random visions. They were codes, encrypted messages that spoke directly to the part of you that the world could never silence. The first truth. Here's the first big truth. You were never outside the norm. You were the pattern of something the world has not yet learned to recognize. While they tried to fit you into small molds, your soul wanted to grow in directions that didn't fit within the imposed limits. The discomfort you felt was not a defect. It was expansion. It was your energy stretching against a cocoon that was never meant to contain you. You were shaped by intuition, trained by sensitivity, and educated between the lines. The others needed noise to feel alive. You learned to listen in silence. This is not failure. That's skill. Rare, unusual, powerful. A new look at the old you. Today, you have the chance to look back with new eyes. Those parts of you that you called exaggeration, you now understand as depth. What they accused you of being too slow, too sensitive, too intense, you recognize as attributes of someone who sees what others avoid. So, before we move on to the truths they kept from you, take a moment, remember, realize. Nothing you experienced was in vain. Everything was a sign. Everything was map. Everything was code. And now you start to decipher. Your journey is just beginning. It's time to regain your strength and build a new path. Subscribe to the channel and be part of this community that is awakening to the truth. Dreams, the voice that speaks when the world is silent. The message. No one translates. There is a moment when the world becomes silent. This is when the mind falls asleep, the body slows down, and the soul begins to speak. And she doesn't speak with ordinary words. She uses images, symbolic scenes, forgotten voices. This silent language has a name: dreams. But the question no one wants to answer is simple. What if your dreams always tried to tell you something important, but no one ever taught you how to listen? Have you ever woken up with the feeling that what you dreamed was not just a nighttime delirium, but a living message? That there was something more hidden in that strange image, in that repetition, in that feeling that accompanied you all day? Well, no, you are not alone. When science started listening for centuries, dreams were seen as just illusions or random fragments of the mind. Only in 1899, with the publication of the book The Interpretation of Dreams of Sigmund Freud, is that the Western world began to study dreams as significant expressions of the psyche. But it was only from the decade of 1970, with the advancement of neuroscience and transpersonal psychology, dreams also began to be understood as forms of non-rational perception, that is, as channels of connection with deeper levels of consciousness. Today, research conducted by universities such as Stanford and Harvard already admits that some dreams present similar patterns and structures between people from different cultures, especially among those with strong intuitive sensitivity. Recent studies, 2021 Frontiers in Psychology, point out that more than 62% of people who have experienced spiritual awakening events report receiving signs through dreams before the changes took place. Dreams that prevent and dreams that reveal. Do you remember that day when something felt wrong and you had dreamed about it before? That was no coincidence. This has a name: premonitory dream. It's not superstition. It is a registered phenomenon. There are countless reports throughout history of people who dreamed of tragedies or revelations before they occurred. For example, in 1865, Abraham Lincoln told his personal guard that he had dreamed of his own funeral inside the White House. Days later, he was murdered. In September 11, 2001, a significant number of people subsequently reported having had disturbing dreams days before the attack on the Twin Towers, as published in the book Dreams and Premonitions, 2015. These dreams are not common. They carry codes. And if you've had this kind of experience, don't ignore it. Because dreams are not just projections. They are coded instructions, maps of the invisible. Intuition, the heart knowing before the mind. But the signs don't just come at night. They also appear in that feeling that you can't explain. A tightness in the stomach. A thought that appears out of nowhere and proves to be real. A feeling that something is going to happen. And it does. That's it, intuition. Segundo, a American Psychological Association, APA, intuition is a form of rapid subconscious mental processing based on past experiences and heightened sensory perception. But there are those who say, and rightly so, that it goes beyond that. That it's not just a quick brain calculation. It is the language of the soul trying to intervene before it is too late. Spiritually awakened people have this perception heightened. 2018 studies published in Journal of Spirituality and Mental Health indicate that individuals who practice meditation or frequent introspection develop up to 40% more sensitivity to intuitive cues. You already knew, even when you doubted. Remember that moment in your life when you didn't know why, but you felt like you needed to change? That something pushed you away from a place, a person, a decision? And only later did you understand why. This is the invisible talking to you. And he doesn't scream. He whispers. Use the dream, the strange sensation, the sudden silence. But the message was always there. And for a long time you doubted her because you were taught not to trust yourself. But what if you stop now and think, how many bad decisions have you made because you ignored what you felt and followed what seemed logical? You realize now that the mistake was not feeling. The mistake was to silence the sensation. Start reading the language only. You understand. You have a radar inside you. It is not scientific in the traditional sense. He is spiritual. He warns you, guide you, protect you. The dreams that come back, the signs that repeat themselves, the words that seem to echo out of nowhere. None of this is a coincidence. It is spiritual communication. It is a way of God, of the universe, of your own soul, of saying, hey, I'm still here, and you can still hear. So, if today you find yourself faced with something you don't understand, and the world tells you to ignore it, remember, everything that is valuable begins in the invisible. And maybe that strange dream, that strange feeling that haunts you isn't trying to confuse you, but I wake you up. It's time to regain your strength and build a new path. If this video is making sense to you, don't stop here. Click sign up now and discover the next step towards your transformation. The silent agreement. The truth they never told you. The things nobody says. Have you ever noticed that some questions are avoided as if they were dangerous? From an early age, we learn to ignore certain subjects, to laugh at certain doubts, to accept shallow answers about deep topics. But why? The answer is unsettling. There is subtle engineering behind collective ignorance. And this engineering has a very clear objective: to keep you away from who you really are. You might even think this is an exaggeration, but what if I told you that many of the truths that define your existence have been purposefully suppressed? That your role in this world was distorted before you were even born? The truth as a threat. For centuries, anyone who dared to think differently was silenced. History is full of examples. Galileo was condemned for claiming that the earth rotated. Socrates was executed for teaching young people to question. Jesus was crucified for defying the religious order of his time. What did these names have in common? They were all seen as threats because they carried a truth that the current system did not support. But this is not a thing of the past. Even today, the truth, especially the truth that frees the individual from manipulation, continues to be suffocated in subtle ways through programmed education, biased media, and limited narratives. The invisible game. How the truth was dissimulated. Have you ever wondered why certain subjects are never taught in schools? Why do they never tell us about the strength of intuition, about the energetic influence of environments, or about the connection between spirituality and identity? This is not forgetfulness. It's strategy. The dominant structure of the world cannot be sustained if people discover how free they are inside. Why awakened people are not manipulable. They don't follow blindly. They question. They see. And the most efficient way to prevent this is not by force. It's because of distraction. It's because of superinformation without depth. It's making you believe that you are well informed while you are, in fact, completely disconnected from your essence. Who are they? When we say they, we are not talking about a secret group of people gathered in dark rooms. We talk about a systemic concealment mechanism, which operates in institutions, traditions, dogmas, and customs repeated without conscience. They is the set of forces that benefit from your confusion. It is the combination of interests that prosper the more you doubt yourself. It could be the culture that tells you that you need to fit in. It could be religion that teaches you that you need an intermediary to speak to the divine. It may be the school that shapes, but does not awaken. TV that entertains, but doesn't liberate. This they have no face, but they have effects. And the main thing is this: the disconnection between you and your own origin. Lies as a tool. Manipulation never happens obviously. It doesn't tell you you are being deceived. It offers you shallow versions of reality until you forget there is depth. She exchanges wisdom for doctrine. Exchange spirituality for guilt. Exchange freedom for norms. And little by little you begin to doubt your own inner voice. The most dangerous thing about this is that you begin to collaborate with your own prison. You judge yourself for feeling too much. You keep quiet for fear of looking crazy. You accept labels that never defined you. And all this happens without realizing it. But why hide? Because there is power in truth, and every person who knows their essence becomes a point of light that breaks the system. A single awakened soul unbalances everything. That's why hiding your origin, your purpose, your direct connection with the divine was a priority from the beginning. And it's not just about you, it's about generations. Because when one awakens, he begins to awaken others. And that is what this system cannot allow. The awakening to spread. How does awakening begin? Awakening begins when you realize that it does not need approval to exist fully. When you start to question what has always been taught as right without being explained. It starts when you listen again to what has been silenced. Your intuition, your dreams, your pain, and even your discomfort. Because all of this guides you out of the illusion. Awakening is not a bolt of lightning that falls from the sky. It's a process. It starts with doubt, grow up with curiosity, and it explodes when you finally look at yourself and understand, nothing is wrong with me. The mistake was what I was made to believe I was. Time to choose view. There comes a time when you can no longer unsee it. When the pieces fit together. When inconsistencies scream. When the masks fall. And then, either you close your eyes again, or you decide to see everything even if it hurts. And if you've made it this far, it's because you've already seen it. And what you saw can no longer be ignored. The truth was hidden, yes, but she never died. It was stored inside you, waiting for the right moment to come back to the surface, and perhaps that moment is now. Share this knowledge with the world. Together we can spread this message and help more people become free. Subscribe to the channel and send this video to anyone who needs to hear this truth. The weight that built you, the pain that came before destiny. Nothing was in vain. Some people look back and see only losses, stumbles, falls. Memories that hurt, mistakes that weigh heavily, phases that no one saw but that marked everything. And the question that echoes within many is, why did I have to go through this? But what if the correct question is not why, but for what? You may not have noticed it yet, but all the pain that went through you was shaping you into something that could only be built with scars. Pain is not punishment, it is transformation. For a long time, we were taught that suffering is punishment. That if you are going through trials, it is because you made a mistake. But this idea is limited. It reduces growth to comfort, and no one expands where there is no friction. Pain is a type of language that the soul understands when surface paths fail. She is the alarm that awakens, the hole that reveals what was underneath, the collapse that demands reconstruction. According to trauma psychology, periods of deep suffering are usually linked to phases of internal reorganization. Studies of American Psychological Association show that, after going through traumatic experiences, more than 70% of people report significant positive changes in the way they see life, phenomenon known as post-traumatic growth. I.e., what hurt you yesterday may have laid the foundation for your maturity today. When life tears the script, have you ever had the feeling that everything you planned went down the drain? That things just fell apart without warning? This is the exact point where many give up. But what few realize is that there is a hidden intelligence in the chaos. It's not random, it's replacement. What was taken from you may have been removed to make room for what truly belongs to you. It's like a garden choked with weeds. Sometimes life takes away with force what is stopping you from growing. And yes, it hurts. But that pain is the beginning of liberation. The moments that almost broke you. Think about the moments that almost erased you, the ones you thought you couldn't handle, where everything went dark and no one seemed to hear. Now look at who you became after them. Are you stronger, more aware, more selective with your energy, more attentive to your words? It wasn't out of the blue. It was the effect of the fire. Just as gold needs extreme heat to be purified, his soul needed certain storms to reveal what he had always hidden within him. Pain as entry key. In ancient spiritual traditions such as shamanism and Eastern mysticism, pain is considered an initiatory portal. No one wakes up without first facing their own abyss. And this is not religion. It is spiritual reality. You only see depth when you lose ground. You only seek the invisible when the visible collapses. And it is at this point that consciousness begins to open to something beyond matter, beyond control, beyond the predictable. Pain does not come to define you. She comes to break through the shell of false identity that the world stuck to you. It comes to remove what is shallow and reveal what is real. It wasn't injustice, it was direction. It may seem cruel, but some doors close to protect you from destinies you were not meant to live. Some relationships end so you realize you were being diminished. Some opportunities fail so you discover greater ones. And if you look carefully, you will see that the most violent falls came before the greatest comebacks. This is no coincidence. It's construction. Pain opened his eyes, refined your listening, redefined your priorities. The strength that no one sees. There is a type of strength that does not appear on social media, that no one applauds, but what lives in the silence of someone who has cried in silence and still got up the next day. This force is not visible, but it is indestructible. And if you're reading this, it's because you survived. And survive, in this world, it is an act of spiritual resistance. Honor your pain. Don't hide what hurt. Don't erase what marked you. Honor the pains that made you more whole. Every old wound is proof that you overcame what seemed impossible. Each tear shed carried a cleansing that only you know the weight of. And now, all of this has become a foundation. You are not weak because you fell. You are rare for standing up after everything. What came to break you built. You maybe no one has told you this yet, but you are made of noble scars. Every pain that crossed your path came with a greater purpose than the wound. Prepare you for something that only the marked can carry. Now you understand. It wasn't bad luck. It wasn't punishment. It was initiation. To not miss any message from God, click the subscribe button, write "I'm ready" in the comments, and start aligning your energy with the transformation that is coming. The feeling as you disassemble masks, the strength of those who see with their heart, the emotion that never had a name. Have you ever walked into a room and, without anyone saying a word, realized something was wrong? Have you ever felt a knot in your stomach when faced with a lie camouflaged by a smile? Or did you cry over something you couldn't even explain? Maybe you spent your life hearing that this was exaggeration, drama, fragility. But now it's time to hear something else. This is sensitivity. And sensitivity is not weakness. It's radar. The ability no one could name. For a long time, the world taught that being strong was being cold, that showing emotions was synonymous with vulnerability, and that feeling too much was a defect. But this logic is breaking down. Why, on an increasingly noisy, insensitive, and performative planet, empathy has become one of the rarest and most dangerous skills to have. Yes, dangerous. Because those who feel a lot see a lot, and those who see too much are uncomfortable. Recent studies of the Greater Good Science Center from the University of California point out that people with high empathy can detect falsehood with up to 85% accuracy in social tests, even when the signs are almost imperceptible. That's because real empathy isn't just emotional, it's intuitive, perceptive, strategic. What they always tried to deactivate. If you feel intensely, you have probably already been the target of criticism. They said you were too weak, that you took everything personally, that you needed to toughen up. And maybe you believed that for a while. But what was really happening was something else. The world was trying to shut down its perception system, because those who feel deeply do not easily adapt to a system that profits from indifference. Sensitivity is revolutionary. It connects, breaks invisible walls, reveals hidden intentions. And that's why she's scared. When feeling becomes a tool, there is immense power in identifying other people's emotions without them saying anything. It's like going into a dark place with a flashlight while everyone else is groping in the pitch black. Empathetic people can detect cracks in relationships, find unspoken truths, understand pain that has not even been confessed. This makes them naturally protective, silent leaders, invisible guardians of what is true. And, in moments of crisis, they are the ones who remain firm, because they know what is at stake long before most people understand. Society tries to erase what it doesn't understand. Sensitivity is uncomfortable because it gets out of control. It breaks rigid structures. She disarms empty speeches. She exposes what the world tries to hide behind status, appearance, performance. That's why you were silenced so many times, ridiculed, isolated. Not because it's less, but for seeing too much. What does society do with what it doesn't understand? Label, disdain, silence. And that's exactly what they did to you. But this is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of its reconstruction. The heart as a strategy. In environments where ego rules and competition dictates the rules, being sensitive seems like a mistake. But behind the scenes of human evolution, empaths have proven themselves the most important agents of transformation. Innovation companies already recognize this. According to the global report from Deloitte Insights 2022, leaders with high emotional intelligence are up to 3 times more effective at resolving conflicts and engaging teams. This isn't a knack, it's skill. It's emotional precision. You don't feel it by chance. You feel to guide, to balance, to bring clarity where there is confusion. The gift that becomes a shield. When misunderstood, empathy can become a trap. You attract broken people. You try to save those who don't want help. You exhaust yourself trying to heal wounds that aren't yours. But spiritual maturity transforms this gift into a shield. You learn that feeling everything does not mean absorbing everything. That caring doesn't mean destroying yourself. That loving others is only possible when you learn to protect yourself. And then, empathy becomes armor. No longer a burden, but a sharp, targeted gift. Capable of illuminating, yes, but also of cutting through illusions with the precision of a scalpel. You were chosen to feel. Don't ignore what makes you different anymore. Your sensitivity is what makes your existence so necessary, because the world doesn't need more tough people. It needs hearts that still beat out of rhythm with the system. You are called to be that kind of presence. One that reconnects. One that restores. One that sees. What you call fragility, the world will one day call strength. One day, the world will look at those who feel and understand that they were always the truly brave ones. Because it requires much more bravery, remain sensitive in a world that tries to harden you at all times. What they called you a weakness was actually a superpower. And now, you can finally use it conscientiously. No more apologizing for feeling. You are not weak, you are rare. And rarity has value. Now you understand. It wasn't bad luck. It wasn't punishment. It was initiation. If you feel this calling within you, subscribe to the channel and write "I am chosen" in the comments. Declare that you are ready to receive what is already in store for you. Now it's up to you. Nothing will be hidden anymore. The mask has fallen. You've come this far. Read every line. You recognized fragments of yourself in stories that seemed distant, but were always inside you. Now there's no more pretending you don't know, because the truth does not disappear. It waits for the right moment to reappear. And that moment has arrived. Everything they hide is in you. From the beginning, they tried to make you doubt what you felt. They erased signs, confused your senses, distorted your image until you stopped looking. But it didn't work, because the essence is not lost. She just silences until the world is quiet enough for her to speak again. And now, you're listening. You were never fragile. What you called weakness was just power without direction. The sensitivity, the dreams, the discomfort, the isolation, the questions. Every detail you tried to hide was exactly what brought you here. You have not been broken. You have been trained. What looked like pain was formation. What hurt prepared you. The lie is over. No more living the story they wrote for you. The one that said you should shut up, obey, fit in, shrink yourself to fit where you should never have been. You did not come into this world to repeat patterns. You came to break cycles. It doesn't matter where you started. It matters where you decide to go from here. Choose view. You can continue to pretend you don't know. You can get back to your routine. You can ignore everything and carry on with your life as if nothing had changed. Or you can do it differently. You can accept that you always knew. You can face head-on what can no longer be unseen. You don't need to be ready. You need to be willing. Because what comes now is not for those who have all the answers. It's for those who have finally started asking the right questions. Everything they tried to hide is already unlocked. You don't need to look elsewhere. What I was looking for was always inside. It was silenced by fear, shame, and pressure, but it never ceased to exist. Don't wait for anyone else to come and save you. There won't be a magic light or a perfect signal. The revelation has already happened. It's done. Now it's about what you do with it. Power has changed places before. You expected recognition. Now, you understand that you don't need permission. Before, you asked if it had value. Now you know that value is not measured from the outside. The difference is simple. Now you remember. Remember who you are. Remember what you carry. Remember why so many things tried to erase you. Because what you carry bothers you. And what bothers them they try to silence. The end of the wait has arrived. The time to remain silent is over. The hiding phase is over. The era of accepting crumbs, of being content with little, of living under the eyes of others, is over. You spent too much time trying to understand why you were different. Now, you understand. It was different because it came to be a reference. Chosen does not ask for leave. You are not called to live an ordinary life. You were not molded to fit into shallow frames. You came to move, change, interrupt repetitions that have spanned generations. And that has a price. But it also has an impact. Your presence changes environments. Your truth bothers systems. Your courage paves the way for others. Now it's up to you. There's no going back. You know what you carry, and you can no longer pretend you don't see it. From here, it all depends on your choice. Continue molding yourself to the world, or start shaping the world based on who you really are. Just one phrase to remember: what separates you from where you were to where you belong is the decision to act like someone who already understands their own worth. Just like that, the awakening continues. If this video opened your eyes to truths you had never seen before, imagine what else you can discover. Subscribe to the channel now and turn on notifications so you don't miss any content that will transform your life.